Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what's honestly one of the most incredible, totally odds-defying stories in the history of international sports. We're talking about Croatia's 2026 World Cup team. It's this amazing tale of pure resilience, tactical genius, and an aging golden generation gearing up for one final, spectacular stroke of magic. Right off the bat, to really grasp the scale of what we're looking at here, think about this number: 3.8 million. That's the entire population of Croatia. Literally, by every conventional metric out there, whether it's population size, domestic league money, infrastructure, they should just be your average run-of-the-mill team. But somehow, their footprint on global football is just absolutely massive. So you gotta ask yourself, how does a country this unbelievably small consistently go toe-to-toe with and beat global giants? How do they force us to completely throw out the rulebook on what it actually takes to build a successful footballing nation? Well, here's how we're going to break it all down today. First, we'll look at the Croatian football miracle. Then, we'll meet the architect and the maestro. After that, we'll dive into their tactical DNA and squad, weigh out their key strengths and weaknesses, and finally, wrap up with their World Cup 2026 outlook. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Croatian football miracle and how they punch above their weight. If you follow international football, you've definitely heard them called the Vatrani, which translates to the Blazers or the Fiery Ones. And honestly, that just nails their whole vibe. Those iconic red and white checkered jerseys, they aren't just for show. They represent this incredibly dramatic brand of football, insane resilience under pressure, and a total collective refusal to back down. It's this underdog ethos that's literally woven into their culture. And the history backs it up, but in a totally fascinating way. Look at their hardware. Bronze in '98, silver in 2018, bronze again in 2022. Across their 6 previous World Cup appearances as an independent nation, there's this wild binary phenomenon. They either crash out in the group stage or they go all the way to the semifinals. There is literally no middle ground. If they survive the group, watch out, because they are going deep. Moving on to Section 2, the architect and the maestro, the men pulling the strings behind the magic. Okay, so it all really comes down to these two guys. First up, manager Josko Gvardiol, the pragmatic architect. The guy isn't chasing some perfect tactical ideology. His absolute genius is in building squad unity, setting up a rock-solid defensive base, and tweaking his tactics to perfectly counter whoever is in front of him. And then you have the ageless maestro himself, Captain Luka Modrić. The man is approaching a record-tying 6th World Cup at 40 years old. Sure, he might not have the legs he used to, but his ability to orchestrate the pitch and his pure unmatched experience, totally irreplaceable. Let's get right into Section 3, tactical DNA and squad, organized intelligence. Basically, Croatia beats you with their brains. They win through organized intelligence. Their go-to setup is a 4-2-3-1, though Dalic has been testing out a 3-4-2-1 ahead of the tournament. But the blueprint stays exactly the same. Step 1, build up super patiently from the back. Step 2, let the midfield completely dictate the game's tempo. They aren't going to run themselves into the ground with reckless high pressing. Instead, Step 3, they hold their compact shape, and the second you lose your organization, boom, they hit you with lethal vertical passing. But hey, that kind of system only works if you've got the midfield to pull it off, right? And this right here is their true engine room. You've got Modrić running the show, Mateo Kovačić bringing that crazy dynamic energy and breaking through pressure, and Mario Pašalić acting as a serious box-to-box threat. And the scary part? They're seamlessly bleeding in the next generation with phenomenal talents like Luka Modrić and Martin Baturina. Very, very few teams can match that level of technical quality. Of course, a masterclass midfield needs a solid foundation, and that's where Josko Gvardiol comes in. The fact that this absolute world-class center back has returned from a fractured shin in time for the tournament, that is a massive sigh of relief for them. Playing at the top tier with Manchester City, he's got the pace, the power, and the ball-playing skills to perfectly balance out those veteran guys in midfield. He gives them serious structural integrity. All right, on to Section 4, key strengths and weaknesses, the tactical scales. So what exactly makes this team so terrifying to play against? Well, their mental resilience is off the charts, especially when you get to a penalty shootout in the knockout stages. They are just ice cold. Throw in that deep midfield, phenomenal penalty-saving goalkeeper in Dominik Livakovic, and a 2026 qualifying run where they literally went unbeaten, scoring 26 goals and only conceding 4. Yeah, that's a huge problem for the rest of the world. But look, they aren't bulletproof. If you're playing Croatia, you're targeting a few glaring red flags. Number 1, they really desperately lack a world-class 25-goal-a-season striker to finish off their chances. 2, let's face it, the core is getting old. Modrić is 40, Ivan Perišić is 35. How are they going to hold up in the brutal North American summer heat? And finally, as we saw exposed at Euro 2024, if you play a high defensive line against pure raw pace, they can get seriously vulnerable. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, World Cup 2026 Outlook, Group L and beyond.
So let's look at how the power dynamics for Group L are shaping up. You've got England sitting pretty near the top of the FIFA rankings as heavy favorites. Then there's Croatia at 11th, bringing immense tournament experience. Panama is around 33rd with a really compact structure, and Ghana at 74th, bringing some unpredictable athleticism. Just looking at the paper, Croatia is comfortably the second strongest squad in the mix.
But the entire tone of this group gets set right out of the gate. June 17th, Arlington, Texas, Croatia versus England. Talk about deep psychological history, right? Remember when Croatia absolutely broke English hearts by knocking them out in extra time back in the 2018 semifinal? Whoever takes this rematch is going to carry massive momentum for the rest of their tournament.
But they can't just fixate on England. Ghana represents a very specific strategic threat here.
Like we talked about earlier, a highly athletic, direct team with raw pace is exactly the kind of nightmare matchup that can exploit Croatia's high defensive line. It caused them massive headaches at Euro 2024, and Ghana will absolutely be looking to target that. So when you crunch all the data, analysts officially classify Croatia as a competitive dark horse for 2026. Basically, that means they have the genuine quality and the proven capacity to upset the heavy favorites. But there's a real question mark over whether they have the deep attacking firepower and just the physical freshness required to survive 7 grueling matches.
Which really brings us to the most compelling question of this whole explainer. Can the Vetrini do it one last time? You can analyze the raw stats all day, but you have to factor in the emotional stakes. For this legendary golden generation, this is their ultimate last dance. There's a quote from the sources that just completely hits the nail on the head. It says, "It is the farewell chapter of a golden generation, the final act of one of the most unlikely and magnificent stories international football has ever produced." You can literally feel the immense emotional weight carrying the squad into the tournament.
And hey, if they do manage to claw their way out of Group L, just remember that crazy binary statistic we talked about. History dictates they won't just stop there, they'll be marching straight to the semifinals. So what you should take away from all this is simple. Are you ready to watch a nation of just 3.8 million people step onto the pitch and completely defy footballing logic one last time? Because I know I sure am. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.